Okay, Phantasma Soldiers. It's me, your friend Doc. I'm the host with the Ghost. Joined with me is the illustrious development wizard, Paul West, one of our senior developers here on the chain. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here, Doc. I really appreciate it.
All right. So, everybody, as seen in the socials, we have a lot of great news for you coming your way, mostly involved with where we're at in development, the future roadmap for Phantasma, and what's ahead. So, we've invited Paul on here, who has been instrumental in assisting tech and kind of helping us guide the chain to a place where, and this is a term that you're going to hear, we're going to eliminate some of these roadblocks for adoption and craft a new way forward as games and dApps are being built and ready to launch. This is going to be the year of Phantasma. We're confident of that. So, Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of background of your history in your skill sets in development world.
Well, I've been a dev in the corporate world for 30 years or so. I got into blockchain 3 years, 3.5 years ago, and since then I've been working a lot in EVM chain Solidity. Probably 1,000 contracts out there across many projects.
Hold
Just
on a
help
second.
the
Say that again. How many contracts?
It's got to be at least 1,000 now over the past 3.5 years. I know one project alone, we have 123 contracts out on just one of the projects on a very large marketplace. So there's a lot of contracts out there. I've done a lot of work, and I've actually spent a lot of my time in the past, probably in the past year, I spent more of my time doing project management, taking and also helping projects take their ideas and their visions and getting them into the mechanics of blockchain. And so I spend a lot of time kind of looking at the big picture. And that's one of the things I've been able to bring to a lot of projects is the idea of, looking at the big picture, not just looking at the task at hand. And it kind of helps them focus on their goals and help us to build something that doesn't have to be rebuilt later.
Well, that's always a plus.
Abs-
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's,
plan plan for the future.
Well, a lot of projects go in and they say, I need this, and the dev delivers this, but the dev doesn't really spend the time to look at, well, what do they want to do ultimately? And
Right.
is this going to fit with their goals?
Yeah.
So we do a lot of um, large scope planning for what they wanted to do in the future. So what we build now is sustainable and doesn't have to be rebuilt later on or just thrown away.
Exactly. And what we've been doing behind the scenes for the past, what year? We had the exploit, of course. Chain paused, came back online. We have been working diligently at cleaning up all the remaining hanging chads that are left over from that. And now, we're ready to really start thinking about the future. And we brought Paul in, and this is what we've been discussing. And it's been, somewhat quiet with some semi regular updates. But today it's time to really shine the light on some things. So, Paul, I mean, it generally, you had a couple key points that we talked about prior to the call, kind of paint the picture for where you saw the this kind of the state of the chain when you came in, some of the discussions that we've had, and what has come out of that in regard to the way that we are now positioning our development roadmap and um, the foundation that we're trying to lay for Phantasma as we enter into the next year.
Well, that's a mouthful. Um,
Sorry.
All right. Well, we'll start at the beginning. So when I came into the chain, one of the things I was brought in for was um, based on the experience that I have and the understanding of blockchain and projects and the amount of code that I've written, um, come in and assess where Phantasma is at, what they've done in the past, what they're currently working on, what their roadmap is for the future, what are their plans. Um, what are the paradigms that Phantasma was built on? And how well are they sticking to those? And do those actually fit with the current marketplace? And should we change focus? Should we keep the focus? So what I quickly came to understand was our development resources are limited, very limited, um, and that's through there's a myriad of issues. Um, but we're very limited on our development resources, which means the broader our scope, the less we're going to get done. And to that end, we've changed around a few things. One of the things that we've changed is what are we focused on as a project? As a chain, my opinion is, my belief is, the thing that you should focus on most is the actual chain, the making the highway. You know, we make the road, we make it fast, we make it efficient, we make it safe. This is our job. This is what a chain should provide. All of the other ancillary stuff, great to have. And in the original vision of Phantasma, probably was a very good idea. Um, there was just a few trips, trip ups with the exploit and other situations that made it so we don't have the development resources to be able to do those things, such as the decks and the bridge and some of the other things we were working on. So I decided, I recommended, and that was the other thing to keep in mind. Everything I did was recommendations,
Of
um,
course.
and, and the contributors got together and made the decision. This was never a this is what we have to do, or I'm going to be, whatever. It was, this is my recommendation, and together we've created a new roadmap for moving forward. And so we've decided to remove some of the things that we were working on internally and work on ways to make those external projects that we don't have to build and or maintain, and focus on what it is that we do and do it really, really damn well. And that is
Excellent. Yeah.
good, solid chain, a very good, solid contract language, exceptional documentation, and exceptional explorer, and provide all of the ability for the third-party projects to build on our chain and to make it very attractive to do so. And so this was, what do we do? What is it that as a chain we're supposed to be doing? And what do we do to what do we need to do to get there?
Mhm. Excellent. Yeah, it's there's just been an absolute the discussions that the contributors have had between, I guess you call it BD and the dev side, have been intense, and it's been a long road figuring out what are the things we really need to highlight, what are the things we really need to work on. We've been listening to the people who are currently developing projects on chain, taking in their feedback, definitely listening to where their pain points have been, as far as things like documentation or things like ease of use on tutorials or any of that kind of stuff. And we've factored all of that in. Of course, we've listened to the community as well, taken in their suggestions, and it's really come together into something that I think is very workable. And it is not like we're straying so far from what we've published before, but with anything, there's always lessons learned. So when we talk about things like finding different ways to address things like the decks or the bridges, there are multiple ways to do that. And for a long list of reasons, and we'll get into when we once we kind of get the graphic and start going through the actual roadmap itself. I hope that these things will make sense for you, the community, as you watch this, and you'll see that this is really probably the strongest roadmap that we've been able to release post exploit. Now that we've really kind of discovered, like, there's just things that we want to do, and the scope is big, and the reality is the things that we can do, and like you said, Paul, the things that we can do, we can do well, and once we do those things well, the foundation's there for other people to come in, or for third parties to come in and fill these gaps, because we want to build an attractive ecosystem for people to build on. And that's the most important thing. That's the most important core function that the contributing members can provide. So without further ado, let's take a glance at the new roadmap. So and hopefully you'll be able to read this. I'll go ahead and let me see. Let me do it like this. So first of all, we've kind of changed the format, Paul. Um, traditionally we've had like a Q1, Q2, Q3 thing. Clearly, that's not always the best thing because if anyone who actually develops anything knows that when you've got a grand scope like building on a blockchain, um, it's just better to prioritize the features that you need first and get those done in the timeliest manner. So we've kind of changed the format here. To now, next, and upcoming. I think that kind of makes a little more sense. And then, of course, we've got the percentages here too. So let's kind of get into it here a little bit, beginning with the farming liquidity tracker reimbursement plan. Paul, you want to go into a little bit of detail of this, and keep in mind, people, community soldiers, we will also have the town hall and the Discord. Please make sure that you're in the Discord Friday, September 29th, 1 p.m. Paul and I will be there to kind of help follow up, answer questions, go into greater detail. So, this is just kind of going to be a preview, and then we'll be able to kind of get in a little deeper during the town hall as well. So, I mean, what are the highlights here, Paul, that you want to kind of check off first as far as what's on the current map?
Well, yeah, there's a lot on here. There's a few highlights that I think are really important. One is the change from a monthly roadmap to a now, next, and upcoming. There were many reasons for that. One of them was because development resources are one thing, um, but it was also we don't know exactly what the future is going to hold and what developers we're actually going to be able to get a hold of. We've actually onboarded one not too long ago. We're doing another one tomorrow, so we are bringing on more devs. So any roadmap we put out could drastically change over the next however long. The other thing about doing the roadmap the way it was done is that we really cannot provide an accurate accounting for everything that we're actually doing. So the goal with this roadmap is that once a month, we will actually put out an update to the roadmap that shows what we actually did last month. There are countless things we've done over the past 3 to 4 months that would be great for the community to see on a nice list, but we just don't have a place to put it. It just hasn't been an optimal way to put that onto a roadmap of this is all the stuff we actually did. So we're going to be changing that. So you can actually see the progress, see the work that we've been doing. Um, Another thing that we've changed is, um, as we had discussed, we were putting a lot of emphasis on things we were building internally, such as the decks and the bridge. And we've changed focus. And I said, those are things that should be external to the chain. Those are not chain projects, in my opinion. It would be in a perfect world, we'd have chain, we'd have a DEX, we'd have a bridge, and everything would be great. We do not have the resources for that. But what we do have the resources for is building a strong foundation that makes a bridge and a DEX and any other myriad of utilities to build on the chain and build successfully. So we're focusing on the chain, and we're moving in a direction to find a third-party bridge provider. Uh, that also is another one of those bridges are ripe for exploits. Building and managing a bridge is a full-time job for a very large staff. You'll get some of these bridges out there, multi-chain being a good one, but there's other
Mhm.
ones. And a good, huge staff to maintain this thing all the time, very difficult to do. We just don't have the resources. So a third-party bridge, let that be somebody else's sleepless night. And and for the decks, we were building a really cool decks, and we have there's so much great code on it. But on the other hand, maintaining and running a DEX is also another very developer heavy task. We do not have those resources. Plus, having a good safe DEX is primary. We're looking
Yeah.
at ways to limit the risk to all of our users. So we decided we would like to bring over Uniswap and build it on Tomb. There are many reasons for that. One of them is, of course, we don't have to do it. We actually will provide the contracts. Third party can actually deploy the decks, and they can be responsible for it. The other reason is, as we move forward, And we've been talking about this roadblocks to adoption. I keep saying it over and over. Everybody on the team is saying it, and we're trying to knock down roadblocks to adoption. One of the roadblocks to adoption is the differences between Phantasma and EVM chains. The
Yeah.
largest pool of developers by far, and I actually went out and I couldn't find the numbers, but I found 10 sites that listed the top 10 blockchain development languages. Solidity was number one. Solidity is a language for EVM chains.
Hmm.
If we can find a way to tap into those developers, then we have a massive development pool for um, bringing projects onto Phantasma. That's huge. So if
Hmm.
we bring over something like Uniswap that Solidity developers are extremely familiar with and they're very comfortable with, and while it may work a little differently on Phantasma, we can explain those different paradigm shifts, but they'll be comfortable with it. They'll understand about adding liquidity. They'll understand all of the different functions that they've always used.
Yep. Yeah.
And once again, that's a roadblock to adoption is learning a new DEX. Well, they have a DEX they're comfortable with, makes them feel right at home. Tap into those devs.
100%. I think one of the things that a lot of people may not realize when it comes to developing on blockchain. Well, one is that save for, well, I mean, like the actual contracts are always public and open source, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of what happened during DeFi summer, whatever, we're forking, we're improving, we're doing variations on contracts. So when you say, people are going to see something familiar to them with some slight variations, that's going to be a much shorter learning curve. It's also going to allow for deeper integration. Let's say, like, so I mean, it's difference of opinion. When Phantasma was created, it was made for games. There wasn't a need for a Dex. It wasn't supposed to be for that. However, there are some school of thought that I think you and I probably share the same idea that with the Dex brings the nerds, and we need the nerds who can tinker and work on smart contracts. So if we're bringing over a Dex with the AMM model that they understand, it's going to
Yep.
be a lot more simple. It's also going to be a lot more simple for people to take existing DeFi projects or perhaps like some sort of loan project or something like that, and more easily either integrate an existing thing into Phantasma or clone it and create something that's workable under the Phantasma architecture. And when we get that, and when we get that's going to give us use case, going to give us use case for the decks. We're going to get more developers. We're going to get more people looking in. So it's kind of a bit of a chain reaction. So we want code that's somewhat comfortable and familiar. Phantasma is by and large has a million amazing things going for it because of its C# scripting language, right? I think
Absolutely.
that's uncontestable. All right. Um, However, as you said, the pool of developers who are C# native, right, um, is slim. So now we're trying to merge kind of the best of both of these worlds, and I think personally, my opinion, it's the smart move.
I think there's a lot of C# developers. It's usually the number 4, 5, or 6 language out there. It's in the top 10.
Right,
Problem is we don't have a lot of C# blockchain developers.
right, right, right.
And I know I've been a C# developer for 20 years, and it was a paradigm shift. I really had to struggle to figure out Solidity because there's so many nuances of blockchain and code limit size and then understanding transactions and all of these other things. These are things that some developers get nervous about. Um, so yeah, there's a problem there. And what we're focusing on is this goes down to the other question, roadblocks to adoption, was we discussed who is our client. As Phantasma, who is our client? Our client is developers. At the very core, our client is developers. Now, in the end, it's users
Hmm.
using it, all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff. But we do not provide services specifically for users. We're not providing dApps. We're not providing all of these other things specifically. We do a few of them, voting and
Yeah.
staking and a few other ones. But in general, 99% of what the users will use are dApps that developers built.
Mhm.
So our clients are developers. And if we focus on what we can provide for developers, how can we make their job easier? How can we get rid of those roadblocks? How can we break down the walls and make them feel comfortable? Then the developers will come. And when the developers come, then the customers come, the end users. And when the end users come, well, whether it's DeFi or whatever it is that they're here for, then in the end, all of these games that are building on Phantasma now have this massive pool of users that already use Phantasma, have Phantasma wallets, are trading around in the tokens, doing all kinds of things.
Mhm.
They already have an active community of users to tap into. So it makes it very easy. It's and DeFi, while it may not be the focus of Phantasma originally, DeFi brings in a lot of money. It really does. And when you bring in a lot of money, Phantasma, you've got transactions, transaction volume, tons of users,
Yeah.
which is
Arbitrage, you know.
it's absolutely awesome for token prices and for building more on the chain. And people will come to the chain just because it starts building.
Absolutely.
And they start seeing the Sol and Kcow price going up, or
Mhm.
they see new games coming out and they're like, oh, Phantasma, yeah, well, and then they go to Phantasma and they find out there's a lot of stuff going on at Phantasma. It's not just this one game that they really want to play, but it's all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a snowball effect, but our clients are devs.
Mhm.
And so if we can tap into Solidity devs and get them comfortable with the concepts, they don't actually have to learn C# to be able to do this. They probably going to have to learn a little bit on a couple things, but for the most part,
Mhm.
they don't have to become a C# dev to be able
Right.
to work in it.
Right.
We are working on solidifying the transpiler, the Solidity to Tomb transpiler. Um, that is also one of our big things, big drives. We may not be able to get 100% there. There are, when it comes to different ways that EVM does it to Phantasma, we will document those changes if we can't get them automated into transpiler. Um,
Right. Right. And that's a huge, that's going to be a
it's
huge
huge.
feature.
That is going
Major
to be
huge. Yeah.
massive. And this goes back to our documentation. Documentation. We actually have devised, we have one of the contributors who is leading up a team of project developers that are building documentation for us based upon what they've done and the issues
Mhm.
they've had, and making some videos. And so we're actually improving all of that. We actually have an entire team working on that at this point, or contributors working
That's
on
right.
it at this
That's
point.
right. That's right. That's one of the comments that we get from people looking in a lot in the Telegram chat is, where are the tutorials? Where and there's been holes in the documentation that have needed to be filled for some time. And we're aware of that, and we're absolutely now to the point to where we can, and clearly also post exploit, there's been a lot of upgrades to the chain code as well. So it only makes sense to really start hammering down the documentation now because things have been in flux over the past several months, and now we're kind of to this baseline again. So now it's time to start building that documentation on top of that. Now that we know that with the upgrades to the actual chain code itself, so this is all again part of us listening and the contributors and really coming up with a great action plan going forward as we lead up into the next year. Of course, the Bitcoin halving it happens, uh, in April-ish of next year. So hopefully by then, we want to be positioned to where we have these roadblocks knocked out, and it's a nice clear open path for welcoming path for developers to come check out the chain and start putting stuff on there. Paul, what are some of the other highlights in the roadmap here that you'd like to kind of cover?
Well, a couple of things. One is the improvements to the Explorer. Um, we had a new Explorer that was built, and it was kind of troublesome. It just wasn't providing, and turns out it just wasn't running. Didn't have enough resources, CPU, RAM, etc. And so we put it on a new server, and we also have the original dev that worked on it, Alex. He's back working on it. We've got him tasked with that. The ultimate goal, and so we come up with a V1. So basically, it's an existing Explorer or the newer Explorer that is running well and with the existing information that it has. The ultimate goal is to come up with a version of the Explorer that is very similar to Etherscan.
Hmm.
The same look, the same feel. It'll have some additional information. Things might be presented a little differently. But this is another one of those. It makes the Solidity and EVM devs feel comfortable.
Hmm. Yeah, and the
And
users too.
and the users too. And this is great for
Uh,
the end user. Yeah,
Current
absolutely.
Explorer is difficult to navigate. I'll be the first one to admit that.
Yeah.
And I'm seasoned, right? I've been here for years now, and I
Yeah.
still have trouble. So anything, I mean, that's why Arbitrum, BSC, I mean, it's all the same format, right?
It
So
is.
whatever we
It
can do to
is.
get close to that, um, it's going to make things a lot easier for the end user.
And then the other one is the removing the 50K SOL for staking for
Yes,
contract deployment. We discussed that at length
yes,
about why we had it and whether it's a good or bad thing to remove it. There's some concern that the chain could get spammed with contracts, and my opinion is that's exactly why you built the chain,
exactly.
was to get contracts spammed on it.
Yeah,
Um, and if we have to, at the end, if we have to strengthen the nodes, or there was some suggestion of putting a very small amount in there for staking, 1,000 or something like that. I
yeah,
don't know. My opinion is none. I say, open range, let it go. Um,
100%.
but we'll deal with that if and when the time comes. We have to reassess it. But I think for now, removing that's a huge roadblock. And
Right.
so getting rid of that's massive. I'm
Yeah.
excited, really excited to see how much that will help.
I am too, because you know how much I was against that personally. And
Hmm.
we are a technology solution provider, right? We provide a technology for people to build on. Part of building on that is, spamming contracts. We got to know what works. We got to know what doesn't. You have to let people come in and experiment. That's the nature of the game. So removing that by all means, because look, I mean, let's be honest here. If you're not in early and you've got your soul master and you're coming in and souls come back to ATH of, whatever it was, 3.98 or whatever, picking up 50,000 to launch a contract, well, that's a bit cost prohibitive. So, in the
Right.
long run, that's an immediate no, right? So I think this is a great thing. As Paul said, we've discussed this at length, just to get rid of that. I mean, it's great to want to protect the chain and make sure that people have a little skin in the game. I think was kind of the idea. We want to make sure that you're invested in the technology, but in the end of the day, if you're here developing contracts and if you're here tinkering on the chain, well, you're already invested, right? You're already interested, and we want to make sure that we foster an environment where anyone who has the ability, we have the AI bot now, which is working pretty darn good.
Yeah, it
Very,
is.
I mean, it's broken my expectations. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's gone beyond my expectations of functionality. We're having people in the community use that bot, and this is if we've got the open source ethos, right? This is what Phantasma run, a purely open source, community driven project. So we don't want any barriers to be there for someone to come in, check out the bot, make a simple DApp, start to work on the chain, because that's how the magic starts. We need people to tinker, and that's what it's all about. So big fan of removing that. I'm glad that
Oh,
finally I
absolutely.
got someone in there to really agree with me on that. We could get a vote going. So,
Yeah.
um, what else? What else we got going on? We talked about third party bridge, talking about documentations.
Godot. Godot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, that was the whole Unity. I don't know if you're aware about the Unity changing their licensing, and that'll specifically affect us because Poltergeist is in Unity.
right,
So um, that's actually one of the reasons, and this is not on the now, but it could go onto the now as soon as tomorrow. Um, Working on the fully rebuilt wallets. So we have another
Nice.
dev coming on tomorrow. We'll talk about that. We'll find out about where we're going to direct their attention. But the new
Great.
wallet is definitely on the in the very near future because it's huge, especially with the licensing changes with Unity.
Hmm.
That could seriously affect us if they want to charge us per install. We could
Yeah.
get hosed pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But so they could,
Wallets could use a little lipstick too. I mean,
you
let's
know,
be honest.
they haven't had some TLC in a little while, but
Yeah.
we're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix
Yeah.
that. Well, there was, to clarify that, there was a paid, some developer was paid to create a new UI in an
Hmm.
entirely outside of Unity that was
Hmm.
very similar to Poltergeist. Actually, it had
Hmm.
the same look and feel, and the whole UI was actually built. It was just never, the back end was never implemented.
Yeah. I remember seeing the mock-ups and it was quite sexy, actually.
Yeah, and so we're going to revive that and put a back end on it.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
we already got the UI ready. So we just need to get the back end on it, and it is in a cross-platform. Um, it's cross-platform. So in other words, we build this thing. It'll run on mobile. It'll run iOS, Android native, and it'll run on the browser. It'll run on desktop. So
Beautiful.
it's a very nice way to do this. It's very supportive. So we don't have to have various wallets on different platforms. Just have one.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because
And so
that can
that's
also get confusing as well.
oh yeah, and that's coming up very soon here. We didn't put it on the now because we're not actually working on it, but that's we're very close to getting a dev put on it.
Right. I mean, so one of the things I want to touch on again is, we're not putting it on the now, but the pieces are in place. We're as the contributing members, we want to make sure that going forward we are very conservative with our timelines and things like that. Again, it's always been a case of this is what we want to do, or this is what we've had pieces of to be able to do, and we're ready to move past the exploit and just come out gangbusters and things like that. And look, the reality is that things take a while sometimes, and we don't want to overpromise. So we're going to be conservative. Just know that there are a lot of pieces of things that have been promised in the past that are still there. We're just, again, prioritizing what we need to allow people to come in and develop on this chain first. Then we'll get some more of the bells and whistles going. As we get some of these like high ticket items knocked out. So I think that's something that really important. It's not that we're having more delays or whatever. We are actually prioritizing the stuff that really needs done first and making sure that we execute that um, in a fashion that warrants its importance. So
Well, and that's the biggest thing I think that they've come out of all of this is refocusing development on what's important and what we actually can do,
yes.
and then and by and that started by assessing what should we be doing. We looked
Hmm.
at everything that we were doing and saying, should we even be doing that?
Yeah.
Should we be building a DEX on chain? Should we be doing our own bridge? Should we be doing some of these things? And then saying, well, if we shouldn't be doing it, well, that just completely frees that up.
Hmm.
And if we're not going to do it, how do we actually provide that same utility? Third party bridge, converting the Uniswap contract, we provide that utility, but we don't actually have to do the building.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
this is an area where, dev and business dev have been really working in very tight alignment, trying to solve these issues and saying, okay, if we're not going to do it, where do we go? So, from the business development perspective, that's something that we're always out there looking for are the right vendors and the right people. And sometimes when it comes to integrating third party services, people are willing to do it. Some people are willing to do things for a fee. But the more that we do to get more people developing on chain, the easier the path is to get third party people to be willing to integrate the chain, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, so that's also a key component of things. So it's kind of like there's steps and there's things that you have to do in the background, and some people want to see certain metrics, right? Some people want to see token velocity. We're like, okay, you want to integrate, but we don't really see a lot happening on the chain right now. Come back and talk to us in the future. Okay, guys, thanks for your time, right? And that's how it goes a lot of times. But we have a lot of great connections, and on the business development side, of course, we're doing the Southeast Asian expansion. We have announcements coming that way that I think are going to be really great. I just came back and spent some time out in that area, met some great people, met just the most beautiful people in the Philippines with so many ideas. So, business development wise, things are going really strong, but it's one of these things where we don't want to go too far too fast on that end because again, we're trying to bring people onto the blockchain. And the most important thing we can do right now, while there's a ton of stuff going on business development side, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot. Okay.
There is.
I can't quite. There's a lot. There's a lot. We have
There
a
is.
lot of people we're talking to, a lot of people that are developing that we haven't been able to announce yet. It's actually, it's very exciting, but we still want to make sure that we are checking all the boxes with eliminating these roadblocks before we really go hit it hard. But we're laying down the inroads, and it's really right now, everyone. I mean, I couldn't be more excited about the direction Phantasma's going since I started here about a year ago to the day, actually, almost to the day. So, really fantastic stuff. Paul, we're coming up on a little over the half hour now. Of course, we do have the town hall and the Discord Friday, September 29th, 1 p.m. The ticker's going below. Any other big highlighted points you want to talk about here before we kind of wrap it up, or any closing thoughts?
Catacomb.
Catacomb.
Yes. That's something that's been talked about for a while. Doc, you probably know more about it than I do. But it's something that we're starting to going to get that published and active and running, fully functional before the end of the year. That's one of our goals. Is there's multiple reasons. One of them is, of course, we said there'll be a DApp. There'll be DApps this year. Well, there'll be at least one really good DApp. We have a few other projects we're working with, trying to get them out the door too. But this is one that we promised, and it proves the point, and it also will help us as we move forward with getting this DApp out and then maybe getting another one out and another one out. We start figuring
Yeah.
out where are our sticking points, where are the places we either need documentation or some coding improvements. Those all of these, every project we push out and every project we assist, we knock off another rough edge. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a snowball effect. Doc was absolutely right that once we start it, once we make it easier, then you'll start having more and more and more projects get on. This isn't a kind of thing that 6 months from now suddenly we'll be ready for it. We'll be ready for DApps. It's,
Yeah.
well, if we get as soon as we get Catacomb out, we're ready for DApps.
Yeah.
Now, in 2 months, we'll be ready for more DApps, and in
Mm-hmm.
3 months, we'll be more ready.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is in 6 months, we're ready for to open the park,
Yeah.
and
100%.
and welcome the floodgates.
Yeah.
Um, and
100%.
and so this isn't a wait until we're done. This is a we are making progress, and we'll just keep building and getting more dApps in.
Yeah, 100%. And then also noting, just to note, the Sandy project, which, unfortunately for those that follow, there are some issues not related to Phantasma development at all, but actually related to with the scumbag developer that was on the team. However, that will continue forward as well. We hope that we're going to be able to launch that soon. That's also something that we, as the Phantasma contributors, are involved in. So I do encourage you to join the Sandy community as well. Just want to shout out, it's a great community, and we're doing just a lot of fun community building in there. This is the staging grounds. This is the place where we want to have people. We want to show people what we can do with the NFTs. We've got Catacombs coming with the game. Gosh, and just things I can't talk about that I wish I could right now. So it's looking really, really good. The future's bright, my friend.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Any closing thoughts, sir?
It's been a real pleasure working with the contributors. I will say that was probably one of the things that, to be honest, shocked me most. I've been on dozens or 100 different crypto projects, and coming into work with the Phantasma contributors, the core contributors, and getting to meet the entire group, the the passion that this group has for the success of Phantasma, the time they're putting in, the care that they're doing everything with, the attention to the detail, the willingness to, spend hours on calls, making decisions, discussing things to the nth degree to make sure we make the right decisions. Um, this is an incredible group, and I'm really, I'm proud to be part of it, and I really enjoy it.
Well, I mean, Paul, we're absolutely proud to have you on with us as well. So, um, I think that everything that's been happening on the dev side, bringing people back into the fold, bringing great developers like you into the picture, is only. I mean, for those out here watching, I mean, I can't even describe how much stronger we are now. Of course, tech is still leading the way. Sergio is out there advising projects on an individual level. Like, you're not going to get Vitalik out there in partner chats, right?
Right.
Telling people how to develop on Ethereum. It's just not going to happen, but it does here, and that's the difference. And that's why this is so cool. So while I mean, while it's and understandably so, taken some time since the exploit for things to get to this point again. However, the steps that were taken, the level of service, customer service availability that the Phantasma contributors give to partner projects, potential people that coming develop on chain is really unmatched and unrivaled in any other. And look, I've worked like Paul. I've worked on a lot of different projects with a lot of different people, and this kind of, I don't know, vibe. It is a
It's a
vibe,
good way to
right?
put it.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's a good
vibe,
way to.
and
It's a vibe.
it doesn't happen anywhere else. And
I've
I think,
never been. I've never seen it. Never
and I
seen it.
think a lot of that is because just the absolute commitment to the open source ethos with this chain, it being open, it's grassroots, it's something different. It's something special, and that's why I'm proud to be here. Paul clearly is proud to be here, and everybody. And I speak for the rest of the team or the contributing team that is helping behind the scenes. Everyone is just so absolutely dedicated to the success of this blockchain. It's incredible. So for you out there in the audience, like, now's the time to get excited. Right, now's the time to make sure you're out there. You're joining partner community discords and telegrams. You're making sure you're following all the accounts on Twitter. You're doing the retweets. You're out there helping hype it up, because that's where it begins. It begins with you. We can pay for PR, press releases, or whatever, but that's a one day effect, right? Marketing and things like that. This is a community driven project. If you're out there in the community, it's time to get excited again. It's time to be a part of this. Thank you to all the people who are continually out there in the Telegram, in the chats, pushing the narrative along, answering questions, being supportive. We appreciate you. And for the rest of you out there, like, get ready, baby, because buckle up, because Paul said we're laying roads. And I mean, it's like it's the Autobahn, we're gonna hit it, and it's gonna blow your socks off, I think. So all right, buddy. Well, appreciate that. We're going to wrap it up here. Cut up on about 45 minutes. Join us on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern for the town hall in the Phantasma Discord. Okay. And I guess we'll see you there. So thank you again, Paul.
I appreciate it, Doc. What a great time.
Absolutely, my brother. All right, everyone. We'll see you soon. Soldiers.